The massive alien research station times Kepler's eye times hung in the void like a mechanical spider, its metal arms reaching out to grasp the human warship that had drifted into their territory 3 cycles ago. Commander Vextar of the Zephyrian Science Council stood before the viewing portal, his 4 eyes fixed on the strange vessel that had caused such excitement among his team. "Status report, Dr. Kilven," Vextar commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had examined countless alien artifacts. Dr. Kilven, the station's chief xenobiologist, approached with his datapad clutched in his 6-fingered hands. His silver skin gleamed under the artificial lights as he spoke. "Commander, this vessel is unlike anything we've encountered before. The humans call it the Times UES Defiant Asterisk, according to the markings we've translated. It appears to be a military vessel, but the design principles are disturbing." "Disturbing how?" "The entire ship seems built around the concept of warfare, sir. Not exploration, not trade, not even conquest in the traditional sense. Pure, focused combat capability. We've been studying galactic civilizations for over 2,000 years, and we've never seen anything quite like this." Vextar's main eyes narrowed while his secondary eyes continued to scan the vessel. The Times Defiant Times was roughly rectangular, about 800 meters long, with a dark gray hull that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange protrusions and angular surfaces covered its exterior, giving it an aggressive, predatory appearance. "What about the crew? Any survivors?" "The ship was completely abandoned when we found it, Commander. Emergency pods had been launched, but we found extensive damage throughout the vessel. It appears they were engaged in some kind of battle before abandoning ship. However, the interesting part is what we've found inside." Dr. Kilven activated his datapad, projecting a 3-dimensional image of the ship's interior. "The humans have compartmentalized everything. Every section can be sealed off independently. The corridors are narrow and designed for defense, with multiple choke points and defensive positions. It's as if they expect to fight battles inside their own ship." "That's impossible," Vextar said, shaking his head. "No civilized species designs their vessels for internal combat. It goes against every principle of ship construction we know." "That's what we thought too, sir. But look at this." The projection zoomed in on a specific section. "We found what they call damage control stations throughout the vessel. These aren't just repair centers. They're designed to keep the ship fighting even when major systems are destroyed. The humans have backup systems for their backup systems." Engineer Corwin, a bulky member of the crystalline race, lumbered over to join the conversation. His rock-like hide scraped against the metal floor as he moved. "Commander, we've been analyzing their weapons systems. The energy output calculations are frankly terrifying." "Explain." "Their primary weapons are what they call particle beam cannons. The power requirements alone should cripple their ship's other systems. But somehow they've managed to integrate everything. More concerning is their missile systems. They carry something called nuclear warheads." Vextar felt a chill run through his entire body. "Nuclear weapons? On a starship? That's madness. The radiation alone would kill the crew." "Not according to their design specifications," Corwin continued. "They've shielded the entire ship against radiation exposure, both from external sources and their own weapons. These humans apparently fight with weapons that most species wouldn't even consider using on planets, let alone in space combat." "Doctor," Kilven pulled up another display. "There's more, Commander. We found their medical bay. It's not just equipped for standard injuries. It's designed for combat trauma. They have surgical suites that can operate while the ship is under fire, blood storage that could supply a small hospital, and prosthetic manufacturing capabilities." "Prosthetics? You mean artificial limbs?" "Exactly. It appears these humans expect their crew members to lose limbs in combat, and want to get them back into action as quickly as possible. We also found something they call combat stims, chemical injections designed to keep wounded soldiers fighting even with severe injuries." The research team stood in uncomfortable silence, processing the implications. Finally, Vextar spoke. "What about their defensive capabilities? Engineer Corwin activated his own display. This is where it gets truly disturbing, Commander. Their armor isn't just thick, it's layered. They have what they call reactive armor that actually explodes when hit to deflect incoming projectiles. Beneath that, they have electromagnetic shields, then another layer of traditional armor, then structural supports that are designed to keep the ship functional even when the hull is breached. That's not possible. No ship can survive that level of damage and remain operational. We thought so too, until we found their damage reports. This particular vessel was apparently involved in something called the Battle of Kepler Station. According to their records, the Defiant Times continued fighting for 6 hours, after losing 40% of its hull, 3/4 of its crew, and most of its primary weapons. Dr. Kilvin added, "The crew quarters tell an even more disturbing story. Each cabin is equipped with what appears to be combat gear, not just for the military personnel. Everyone on board, including the medical staff, engineers, and even what we believe were civilian contractors. They apparently expect every single person on the ship to fight if necessary. We need to understand their culture better." Vextar decided. "What have you learned about human society from their databanks?" "That's perhaps the most unsettling discovery of all, Commander. We've accessed their historical records, and it appears that humans have been in a constant state of warfare for their entire recorded history. Not just occasional conflicts. Continuous, brutal warfare, spanning thousands of years. They've fought over resources, territory, religious beliefs, political systems, and sometimes for reasons we can't even comprehend." Dr. Kilvin's voice carried a note of amazement and horror. "They have detailed records of conflicts involving millions of casualties. Events they call world wars that consumed entire continents. And through all of this, their technology has been primarily focused on becoming better at killing each other. There has to be more to them than warfare," Vextar insisted. "No species can survive with nothing but conflict." "Oh, there is more, Commander. They have remarkable achievements in art, science, and philosophy. But even these seem to be influenced by their warrior culture. Their literature is filled with stories of heroic battles and noble sacrifices. Their music includes compositions designed to inspire troops before combat. Even their sports are often stylized versions of warfare." Engineer Corwin pulled up a schematic of the ship's engine room. "Their engineering philosophy reflects this mindset too. Everything is designed to be repaired quickly under combat conditions. They use standardized components that can be replaced by any crew member, even under fire. Their fusion reactors are actually designed to be safely overloaded to provide extra power during combat, even though this shortens their operational life." "What's our assessment of human military capabilities based on this single vessel?" Vextar asked. "Frankly, Commander, it's difficult to provide an accurate assessment because their approach to warfare is so different from anything in our databases. Most galactic species fight wars to achieve specific political or economic goals. Combat is a means to an end, conducted with an eye toward minimizing casualties and preserving infrastructure." Dr. Kilvin paused, gathering his thoughts. "Humans appear to approach warfare as a problem to be solved through the complete destruction of their enemy's ability to resist. They don't just want to defeat opposing forces, they want to ensure those forces can never threaten them again. This ship isn't just designed to win battles, it's designed to survive them and keep fighting until nothing is left to fight against." "The implications are staggering," Engineer Corwin added. "If this represents standard human military technology, then their fleets would be capable of sustained combat far beyond what any known species could endure. They've essentially built ships that can continue fighting even when they should be considered destroyed." Vextar turned back to the viewing portal, staring at the human warship with new understanding. "Compile everything we've learned. The Council needs to know about this immediately, if humans ever turn their attention to galactic politics. Every species in the known galaxy needs to be prepared." "Prepared for what, Commander?" "For the possibility that we've encountered a species that doesn't just wage war. They've perfected it." 3 days had passed since the initial examination began, and the research team aboard Kepler's I-Times had made discoveries that shook their understanding of warfare itself. Commander Vextar found himself unable to sleep during the station's rest cycles, his mind racing with the implications of what they were uncovering about human military philosophy. "Commander, you need to see this immediately," Dr. Kilven called out as Vextar entered the main research lab. The xenobiologist's usually calm demeanor had been replaced by barely controlled excitement and fear. "What have you found now, Doctor?" "We've accessed what appears to be the ship's tactical database. The humans have detailed records of every major battle this vessel participated in, complete with strategic analysis and lessons learned. Commander, the way they think about combat is beyond anything we've encountered." Dr. Kilven activated the main display, showing a star map with numerous red indicators. "This ship alone has participated in 47 major engagements over the past 8 standard years. Not skirmishes or brief encounters. Sustained battles lasting hours or even days. And in every single case, they learned something that made them more effective. Show me one of these battles." The display shifted to show a detailed tactical breakdown of an engagement labeled the Siege of Proxima Base. This was a defensive action, where human forces were outnumbered nearly 10 to 1. According to galactic military doctrine, they should have surrendered or retreated. Instead, they chose to fight. The tactical display showed the human position: a small asteroid base surrounded by a much larger alien fleet. The attacking force was the Korthak Empire. A species known for their aggressive expansion policies, they demanded surrender, offering to spare civilian lives in exchange for the base's resources. "A reasonable offer, considering the odds," Vextar observed. "That's what any rational species would think. But look at the human response." Dr. Kilven pulled up a communication record. The human commander sent a single-word reply: "Nuts." Quote, "Nuts? What does that mean?" According to our translation protocols, it's an expression meaning "absolutely not," in a particularly emphatic and insulting way. The humans then proceeded to defend their position for 6 days against overwhelming odds. The tactical display animated the battle's progression. The Korthak followed standard siege doctrine: surround the target, cut off supplies, and wait for surrender. But the humans turned their base into what they call a fortress. Every corridor became a kill zone. Every room a potential battlefield. Every corridor. Engineer Corwin joined the briefing, his massive frame casting shadows across the display. "I've been analyzing their defensive modifications. It's remarkable, Commander. They turned civilian infrastructure into military assets overnight. Their shopping areas became ammunition storage. Their recreational facilities became medical triage centers. And their main plaza became a command post. How did they possibly survive 6 days against such odds?" "By refusing to follow conventional military logic," Dr. Kilven explained. "When the Korthak cut off their supply lines, the humans started manufacturing ammunition from raw materials. When their shields failed, they used debris from destroyed ships to create additional armor. When they ran out of medical supplies, they improvised surgical tools from kitchen equipment." The display showed increasingly desperate defensive measures as the siege progressed. By day 4, the humans were fighting with improvised weapons and using furniture as barricades. Any reasonable species would have surrendered. But these humans seemed to become more determined as their situation became more hopeless. What was the outcome? The Korthak withdrew on day 6. Vextar stared at the display in disbelief. They withdrew? After nearly winning? Engineer Corwin brought up casualty reports. The humans lost 60% of their defending force and 90% of their infrastructure. By any measure, they had been defeated, but they refused to stop fighting. The Korthak had lost only 30% of their forces, but their commander decided the humans were too costly to subdue. That's not possible. No species abandons a nearly won victory. According to the Korthak battle reports we accessed from their public databases, their commander filed this explanation. Enemy forces display irrational commitment to resistance. Projected casualties for complete suppression exceed acceptable parameters. Recommend bypassing this system for targets with more reasonable defensive doctrines. Dr. Kilven pulled up another battle record. This pattern repeats throughout their history, Commander. Humans don't just fight to win. They fight to make the cost of defeating them unbearable for their enemies. Look at this engagement from their historical archives. The display showed an ancient battle record labeled Thermopylae, Earth year 480 BCE. This predates their space travel by over 2 millennia. But it demonstrates their core military philosophy. 300 human warriors held a mountain pass against an army of over 100,000 enemy soldiers. What was the strategic value of this pass? Minimal. The enemy could have simply bypassed it or waited for reinforcements. But the humans chose to make their stand there, knowing they would die. They held the pass for 3 days, killing thousands of enemies before being overwhelmed. That's not warfare, that's suicide. That's what we thought initially. But look at the long-term consequences. The enemy army was so depleted and demoralized by this encounter that they ultimately lost the entire war. 300 humans sacrificed themselves to save their entire civilization by proving that humans would never surrender, regardless of the odds. Engineer Corwin accessed the ship's weapons manufacturing records. This philosophy extends to their equipment design as well. We found that this vessel carries manufacturing capabilities to produce replacement weapons and ammunition during combat. Most species design their ships to carry enough supplies for a specific mission duration. Humans design their ships to continue fighting indefinitely. Show me their manufacturing capabilities. The display shifted to show the ship's industrial sections. They have automated factories that can produce everything from small arms ammunition to replacement hull plating. More disturbing, they can manufacture new weapon systems based on enemy technology they capture during combat. Dr. Kilvin added, "We found records of battles where human ships were heavily damaged but continued fighting with weapons they improvised from enemy wreckage. In one engagement, they lost their primary weapons but created makeshift missile launchers using enemy power cores and their own torpedo casings. Their adaptability is remarkable," Vextar admitted. "But surely there are limits to their willingness to fight." "We thought so too, until we found their contingency protocols." Dr. Kilvin's voice carried a note of deep unease. "Commander, humans have detailed plans for what they call scorched earth tactics. If they cannot defeat an enemy or prevent their own defeat, they will destroy everything of value to ensure their enemies gain nothing from victory." The display showed technical specifications for ship self-destruct systems. This vessel carries enough explosive power to destroy not just itself, but any enemy ships within a significant radius. And according to their protocols, they will detonate these charges if capture becomes inevitable. That's madness. What about prisoner exchanges, negotiations, diplomatic solutions? Engineer Corwin pulled up communication protocols. We found their standard response to surrender demands. They have over 300 different ways to say no, ranging from polite refusal to less diplomatic expressions. But we couldn't find a single instance where they actually surrendered. Never? Not once? Individual humans surrender when overwhelmed, but we found no records of strategic surrender. No cases where human military commanders gave up because of unfavorable odds. They seem to view surrender as fundamentally unacceptable, except under very specific circumstances. Dr. Kilvin brought up human military doctrine files. Their training manuals are equally disturbing. They don't just teach soldiers how to fight. They teach them how to continue fighting when wounded, how to fight with improvised weapons, and how to fight alone against superior numbers. They have a saying, "Every human is a soldier. Every soldier fights until death." What about their civilian population? Surely they protect non-combatants. They do. But their definition of non-combatant is much narrower than ours. We found records of conflicts where their entire civilian population became involved in warfare. Children as young as 12 were carrying messages through combat zones. Elderly citizens were manufacturing weapons in their homes. Even their medical personnel carried weapons and fought when necessary. Commander Vextar sat down heavily in his command chair, overwhelmed by the implications. How has such a species survived? This level of militarization should have led to their self-destruction long ago. That's what makes them truly remarkable, Commander. Dr. Kilvin explained. They've somehow managed to balance their warrior nature with cooperation and technological advancement. When they're not fighting external enemies, they compete with each other in ways that drive innovation and progress. Their wars have actually accelerated their technological development. Competition through conflict? Exactly. They use the same tactical thinking that makes them effective warriors to solve scientific problems, develop new technologies, and explore space. Their entire civilization is built around the idea that any challenge can be overcome through determination, adaptability, and willingness to pay any necessary cost. Engineer Corwin summarized their findings. In essence, Commander, we've discovered a species that has turned warfare into an art form. They don't just fight battles, they study them, learn from them, and become more effective with each encounter. Every defeat teaches them something that makes them stronger. Commander Vextar stared at the human warship through the viewing portal, finally beginning to understand what they were dealing with. Doctor, what's your assessment of human expansion into galactic space? If they maintain their current trajectory, they'll become the dominant military force in the galaxy within a few centuries. Not because they have superior technology or numbers, but because they're willing to pay prices that other species consider unacceptable. They'll win through sheer determination and refusal to surrender. And if other species try to stop them, Dr. Kilvin's 4 eyes met his commander's gaze. Then we'll discover just how far humans are willing to go to protect what they consider theirs. Based on everything we've learned, I don't think any of us want to find out. 1 week after beginning their examination of the human warship, the research team aboard Kepler's I-Times made their most disturbing discovery yet. Commander Vextar stood in what the humans called the strategy room, surrounded by displays that painted a picture of military thinking unlike anything in the known galaxy. Commander, we've accessed what appears to be their long-term strategic planning database. Dr. Kilvin announced, his voice tight with barely controlled fear. What we've found changes everything we thought we knew about human expansion into space. Show me what you've discovered. The main display activated, revealing a 3-dimensional map of local space with hundreds of systems marked in different colors. This isn't just a navigation chart, Commander. It's a strategic assessment of every known civilization within a 50-light-year radius of human space. They've categorized each species by military capability, technological level, resource availability, and what they call threat potential. Vextar studied the display with growing unease. They've been watching us. All of us. More than watching, Commander. They've been planning. Dr. Kilvin zoomed in on specific systems. Look at these assessments. They have detailed analyses of our military doctrines, weapons capabilities, and strategic weaknesses. They know more about galactic military forces than most species know about their own neighbors. Engineer Corwin lumbered over with a data crystal in his massive hands. It gets worse, Commander. We found their contingency plans. Humans don't just prepare for one possible future. They prepare for dozens. They have detailed strategies for every conceivable scenario, from diplomatic contact to full-scale galactic war. Surely they prefer diplomatic solutions? They do. But look at their backup plans. The display shifted to show a document labeled Galactic Integration Protocols. They have 17 different diplomatic frameworks prepared for first contact situations, each designed to maximize human advantages while minimizing potential conflicts. But underneath each diplomatic option, they have corresponding military strategies. Dr. Kilvin highlighted specific sections of the human plans. Here's what truly disturbs me, Commander. Their diplomatic protocols are designed to gather intelligence about potential allies and enemies while presenting themselves as peaceful explorers. Every trade agreement, every cultural exchange, every scientific collaboration is also an opportunity to assess military capabilities and identify strategic weaknesses. That's standard intelligence gathering for any expanding civilization. Not to this extent. Look at this assessment of the Zephyrian Science Council. The display showed a detailed breakdown of their own species' military capabilities, including classified information that shouldn't have been accessible to outsiders. They know about our defensive satellites, our ship production rates, even our strategic reserves. How is that possible? Engineer Corwin accessed another file. Because they don't just gather intelligence passively, Commander. They actively infiltrate other civilizations. We found records of human agents who have lived among dozens of different species for years, sometimes decades, gathering information and preparing detailed reports. Agents, you mean spies? More than spies. Deep cover operatives who integrate themselves into alien societies and rise to positions of influence. They study not just military capabilities, but cultural values, psychological profiles, and social structures. They want to understand how each species thinks, what motivates them, and how they can be influenced or defeated. The display showed a personnel file that made Vextar's blood freeze. A human operative had spent 12 years living among the crystalline race, rising to become a respected engineer in their military shipyards. This individual had access to our most sensitive ship designs for over a decade. Humans probably know more about our defensive capabilities than our own military commanders do. Dr. Kilvin pulled up another disturbing document. Their strategic planners have identified what they call pressure points for every major galactic civilization. Economic vulnerabilities, political divisions, resource dependencies, anything that could be exploited to influence or control other species. Show me their assessment of galactic military strength. The display shifted to a comparative analysis that sent chills through the research team. According to their calculations, the combined military forces of all known galactic civilizations would be insufficient to defeat humanity in a prolonged conflict. Not because humans are technologically superior, but because they're willing to accept casualty rates that would be considered genocidal by any other species. Engineer Corwin highlighted specific projections. They've calculated that galactic forces could achieve initial victories through superior numbers and technology, but humans would continue fighting even after losing 90% of their military assets. Their models suggest that any species attempting to conquer humanity would exhaust their own resources before achieving complete victory. That's assuming other civilizations would fight alone. What about alliances? They've planned for that too, Commander. Dr. Kilven accessed a file labeled Divide and Conquer Protocols. Humans have identified political tensions and conflicting interests among galactic species. Their plans include strategies for preventing effective alliances by exploiting these divisions. The display showed a complex web of relationships between different civilizations, with human strategies designed to exacerbate existing conflicts while presenting themselves as neutral mediators. They would turn our own political disagreements against us, making cooperation impossible while they systematically defeat isolated civilizations. Surely the Galactic Council would prevent such manipulation. According to their analysis, the Council itself is vulnerable to human influence. They've identified key council members who could be compromised through various means: economic incentives, political pressure, or simply by exploiting personal ambitions. Within a generation, humans could effectively control council decisions without anyone realizing it. Commander Vextar felt a growing sense of dread as he studied the human plans. What's their ultimate objective? What do they actually want? Dr. Kilvin accessed what appeared to be a foundational policy document. Their official goal is something they call human security through galactic stability. They claim to want peaceful coexistence with other species, but their definition of stability requires human dominance in all critical areas. Meaning, control of major trade routes, influence over resource allocation, strategic positioning of human colonies, and what they term defensive superiority over all potential threats. They want a galaxy where human interests are protected by ensuring that no other species can challenge human decisions. Engineer Corwin pulled up population projections. Their expansion plans are carefully calculated to achieve this dominance without appearing aggressive. They're establishing colonies in strategically important systems while offering technological assistance to species that accept human presence. Within 50 years, they'll have military assets positioned throughout the galaxy under the guise of peacekeeping and exploration. And if species refuse their assistance, they have contingency plans for that scenario as well. The display showed military deployment strategies that were clearly designed for conquest rather than exploration. If diplomatic influence fails, they're prepared to use economic pressure, political manipulation, and ultimately military force to achieve their objectives. Dr. Kilvin highlighted a particularly disturbing section. They've calculated that they can conquer most civilizations without firing a shot, simply by demonstrating their willingness to accept unlimited casualties. The mere threat of facing an enemy that will never surrender should be enough to convince most species to accept human terms. What about species that refuse to be intimidated? Look at this contingency plan, Commander. The display showed a strategy labeled Total War Protocols. If any species proves genuinely threatening to human expansion, humans are prepared to dedicate their entire civilization to its complete destruction. Not conquest, not subjugation, total elimination of the threat. The research team stood in horrified silence as they absorbed the implications. Finally, Vextar spoke. "What's your recommendation, Dr. Kilvin?" "We have 3 options, Commander. First, we can share this information with the Galactic Council and hope that unified resistance can deter human expansion. Second, we can attempt to negotiate with humans from a position of knowledge, hoping to find mutually acceptable terms for coexistence. Third, we can pretend we never found this vessel and hope that humans never see us as a threat. What are the likely outcomes of each approach? If we unite the Council against humanity, we start a galactic war that humans have been preparing for while we've been focused on peaceful cooperation. We might win initially, but their projections suggest they would eventually defeat us through sheer persistence." Dr. Kilven continued his grim assessment. "If we negotiate, we might preserve our autonomy in exchange for accepting human hegemony over galactic affairs. We survive, but on human terms. And if we do nothing, then we hope humans continue to see us as useful rather than threatening. As long as we don't interfere with their expansion plans, they have no reason to eliminate us. We might even benefit from human protection against genuinely aggressive species." Engineer Corwin added his perspective. "There's a 4th option, Commander. We could share human military technology with other civilizations, hoping to level the battlefield before humans realize what we've learned. That would definitely make us a threat in human eyes," Vextar observed. "Yes. But it might be our only chance to preserve genuine independence for galactic civilizations." Commander Vextar stared at the human warship one final time, fully understanding now what they had discovered. "Doctor, prepare a complete report of our findings. The Council needs to know what's coming, even if they're not ready to hear it." "What will you recommend, Commander?" "That we treat humans exactly as they've been treating us, as a potential threat that requires careful study and strategic planning. They've shown us the importance of being prepared for every possibility. Perhaps it's time we learned that lesson." As the research team began compiling their final report, none of them noticed the small human probe that had been silently observing their station for the past week, recording every conversation and transmitting the data back to Earth. The humans had known about the examination of their vessel from the beginning, and now they knew exactly how much their observers had learned. The game of galactic politics was about to become much more interesting.